Hey there, I'm Chappie, and this is Sketching Out Lorcana. When we speak on behalf of the source material for Disney Lorcana, it's important to note where that source material originated from. Walt Disney animated features. Whether we're talking about our favorite mouse piloting an old timey steamboat, our favorite villain casting a sleeping curse over an entire kingdom, or our favorite princess traveling with her never ending golden hair to see the floating lanterns, Disney animation is the heart and soul and life force of our favorite card game. With animation, there comes a certain principle of art that's rarely captured to such perfection, but animation just so happens to be the definitive capsule for that element, and that's movement. Don't get me wrong, movement is not confined solely to the realm of animation. It's not exclusive to motion pictures and television shows. Is movement something we can see within the artwork of Disney Lorcana? Well, I mean, you know what I'm going to say. I would not even be talking about this if it wasn't something we saw in Lorcana, you know? Would I even bring it up if it wasn't, you know? Anyway, we're going to get a move on and discover the art of movement in this chapter of Sketching Out Lorcana. Now, it's been a while since, where I could give you a phrase and then I could say, okay, you know what this means. That's basic knowledge. I think the last time I could do that was with shape language, right? So, just like you guys know what shapes are, I can guarantee that you guys probably know what movement is. That's the action of taking something or going from one place to another. If I move a water bottle, I'm taking that water bottle and drinking it probably, stay hydrated, and then putting it maybe in the same place or somewhere else. Just picking up that water bottle is a movement on its own. Just like with shapes, it's a basic concept for us to pick up from a very early age. We know what it means to move, be moved, and to move an object. I know what you might be thinking. You're doing the math of what my YouTube channel's all about. You're realizing I'm talking about art on little cardboard pictures of Snow White and Goofy, and you're wondering how I can describe movement while talking about these trading cards, these 2D pieces of pop culture gaming. It's funny you mentioned that because one of the many elements that we can implement in art is movement. With certain parts of an art piece tweaked here and there, or by getting the littlest, tiniest additions, we can take a still art piece and give it a feeling of movement. Movement in art is the use of artistic techniques to emulate the feeling of an object moving in an art piece. With the implications of certain uses of brushes, or colors, or shapes, the artist can implement them in just the right spot, or direction, or whatever, to make you see a character, or a scene, or a vehicle caught in motion. I'm going to give you guys a little sketching out Lorcana pop quiz. I bet you guys never guessed this was going to be a thing, huh? Well, joke's on you. We got a test next week. If you flunk it, you're out. I'm banning you from the channel. I'm banning you from making comments. I am not letting you watch any more Sketching Out Lorcana, and the worst part of it all, I'm taking all your Lorcana cards away. uh, don't listen to me. Alright, here's your pop quiz. In the shape language and ink identity video, I talked about a certain ink color that loved implementing movement into its art. Which ink color was that? I'll give you a moment to think about it. Alright, time's up. The answer was Ruby. With Ruby's ink identity being all about action and daring and courage and boldness, it's safe to say that this ink color loves having action-packed cards which really display movement. Let's go ahead and take a look at, so hard to pick one of these. There's so many dang options. Just kidding. It was easier to pick than I thought. I just looked at a bunch of cards and realized, let's just go with that one. Let's celebrate the Stitch Collector's Gift Set coming out for Azurite Sea, and let's look at Stitch, Little Rocket. You can just look at this and feel the movement in the piece. And what's crazy is that there's just little tiny additions to the art that make it get that vibe. Do you see those little spikes of those little white color spikes that lead into the same direction? These small streaks are just enough to simulate Stitch's movement within the art piece. Our brain sees those lines and automatically puts two and two together to the fact that the little alien experiment is falling or boosting through the air within the art piece. Like I said, there's such small details that take up not even 5% of this whole piece. And they're still just so important to get across the idea of him moving through the scene. Let me blow your minds a little with an earlier Ruby card that implements movement and compare it to the Stitch card we looked at. Get a load of Peter Pan Fearless Fighter. These cards aren't too dissimilar from each other in terms of action in the art, but also in terms of card play and what they do. They're both falling or going through the air, but there's a notable difference with the movement lines. Whereas the movement lines with Stitch, they're intentionally giving the illusion of him moving, the movement lines in this piece aren't purposefully connected to Peter Pan. These lines are part of the environment, which, in the end result, gives off a feeling of the environment shifting around Pete. So instead of us seemingly catching Stitch as he's whizzing by, this art feels more personal since it feels as though we're affected by the movement as well, like we're along with Peter for the ride. That is such a cool little detail. I really appreciate it. I think the one character I've mentioned the most in all of these videos and all of my sketching out Lorcana stuff is Mulan. And I want to stick to the first chapter and talk about her super rare card from this set, Mulan Imperial Soldier. Another callback real quick pertains to what I mentioned back in the Silhouettes video. I talked about how Mulan's cards usually incorporate action to some degree, due to her synonymously being acquainted with martial arts and training to be a soldier and just being plain awesome, meaning that she is usually caught showcasing movement within her cards. This card sticks out to me not only because I see the large version of it every day before walking out the door, but because of how the movement is displayed. You can see Mulan in Khan's forms clearly, but trailing off towards the left just that tiny little bit are little blurs that share their colors, after images of both these characters. This is yet another illusion to simulate motion, and it's something that you can replicate yourself right now with your own eyes. While I'm talking to you, you can do it. Here's how we're going to do it. So just stick your hand like a foot away from your face, and I want you to move it up and down super fast. If you watch your hand while you're doing that, you'll notice that there's moments where your hand just looks like a long blur of skin. You'll see the in-betweens of your hand being your hand, but you'll also notice everything in between, blending together to create the optic illusion. This is motion blur. Motion blur is when an image catches the moments in between movement and kind of gets the middle ground of that movement, causing streaks to capture when the object previously was. To simulate that within Disney Lorcana's art is just absolutely awesome, and is such a sick implementation from Mel Milton. It's just a love letter to where the media originates from. But it's not the only card to do that. Let's take a look at another card that emulates the effect, and let's step out of Ruby for a minute. Yeah, Ruby loves to capture motion and dynamic action, but that doesn't mean movement is solely confined to that ink. Let's scooch on over to Sapphire and talk about Basil, Great Mouse Detective. Here, we see Basil piloting a device very similar to the one he works towards the end of his own movie. What I want you to note are the propellers on top of the vehicle. Those propellers are caught still within the moment of the art, but you can see these circular arcs that connect the propellers and even share the same color. They're given that slight blurriness, achieving the illusion of the propellers being in perpetual motion. It's so cool, and is super reminiscent of when you watch a fan at a high setting and blink to catch the propellers in a moment of stillness between the constant movement. Now, let's do a lightning round of some really cool Disney Lorcana implementations of motion. Are you ready? Here we go. Li Shang, archery instructor, is an expert showing of movement. The noteworthy implementations can be seen on the bowstring and the arrow knocked loose from said bowstring. While you can see the arrow caught in a motion blur, you can see a main bowstring showing the most movement. Not only do we have that main bowstring, but we also have the lighter echoes on each side connected with the lightest movement lines between all three bowstrings. This is to show that main bowstring vibrating from the arrow being loosened. It's super cool. Lumiere Fiery Friend is super unique because his movement is actually displayed through the lighting. The blurs of movement show not the golden or waxy surface of Lumiere's character, but it's the flames that go to show off the motion. You see sharp trails of warm glows following Lumiere's movements within the piece. I know I said we'd stay on Ruby for a minute, but it's such a cool and unique detail. I think it's an awesome representation of movement to me. Belle, Accomplished Mystic, also achieves a similar effect. As we see this awesome capture of Belle's new powerful form, there's a swirl of rose petals surrounding her position. It's the light pink trail of magic between the petals that sets up for the illusion of movement and lets us see her mystic powers caught in just a glimpse of that action. Let's throw Beast thick-skinned in here since we're having a Beauty and the Beast party. This steel card shows the Beast punching through some sort of debris, but the motion lines carry further back than we're shown. This gives the illusion that Beast really followed through with his punch from a distance, meaning he put his whole body into breaking that tree or rock or hill or whatever. You feel the power displayed just in the movement lines, just with how long they are, just with it following through. It's super cool. Maximus Relentless Pursuer is also unique in the fact that you get to witness something rather unique where his movement is displayed from the points of contact he makes with the ground rather than from himself. But he's not the only card to do this. Let's go ahead and kind of cap everything off with our thumbnail subject. Robin Hood Sharpshooter has such a unique stance on this because the card and the original art piece differ with just one change. While the card is set to highlight the action caught in a frame, it's like we're frozen in that shot before he takes the archery shot. Just a moment before Robin Hood lets loose those arrows. It's the original art piece that really shines and shows the movement. You see the impact from the point at which he bounded into the air. Blades of grass kicked up to show the power behind the movement. I think it's so cool that they're both the same art piece, but when you put the frame of the card into the working, it's like it's a completely different art piece. You can display two different things just within this medium. It's super neat. It's these details that show the love and care and attention and overall sheer acknowledgement and understanding of art that make Disney Lorcana just absolutely, positively magnificent. Because it's just that one teeny tiny change, choosing not to show just that one piece of the art, that makes them two different art pieces in their own rights. What I love about the use of movement is that it feels special to Disney Lorcana. Like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the source material is straight from these movies that you've loved since childhood. Not only you, but your parents and your grandparents get to see these beloved characters that span generations and makes Disney Lorcana a game for those generations. There's special attention to detail of Fix-It Felix hammering something to make it stronger, or Prince Philip gallantly slashing his sword through viciously encroaching briars. There's a love placed into the sheer awe of Arthur's face when magic helps him wield a freaking video game sword that's like 5 times his size. There's magic captured in a glimpse of gold trailing behind Tinkerbell and making it seem like she's captured in that card, looking out at you as you play her on your turn. And there's a moment, just that brief second, where you wonder to yourself if she could fly out of that card at any second. You get a glimpse, a moment of that character in the action, in the magic. And even though it's still in the art, your heart can see it in motion. And it brings that piece of cardboard to life and just makes it mean that much more. That's why this trading card game is so magical and amazing and moving to me. You can feel these characters move and come to life, just like in their original animations. And that magic, it doesn't stop there. This is just a pinch of the pixie dust behind Disney Lorcana's magic. I can't wait to share more with you guys, and I can't wait to dive into the magic more. But until then, you guys better keep on questing, and I'll see you real soon.